Hey everybody, this is Katie Kimball from kitchenstewardship.com, and I'm super pumped to be talking to Andrea Fabry today from It Takes Time. And she has had quite a history dealing with everything that the world has thrown at her family. Today we're talking very specifically about EMFs in your Wi-Fi and your smartphones. And we're going to try to keep this super simple and very much the baby step style that both of us subscribe to, as far as what are some very, very simple basic things you can do that will make a big impact to protect you and your family from the potential hazards of EMFs. So thank you so much for being here today, Andrea. Welcome.
I'm very excited. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, would you start by just giving us a really quick snippet of what brought you to become somewhat of an expert on this subject? You're my expert, at least.
Well, you know, we had a lot of health problems in our family stemming from issues not directly related to electromagnetic fields, but I had this awareness of health, and then like everybody else, I'm not an electrician, and then I started to do some reading on the subject of electromagnetic fields, and I got extremely overwhelmed, said I can't even touch that, it's too big for me. And then I took a course, a certification course in building biology, and a huge part of that was this topic. And then the more I studied it, the more I realized, no, this is one of the most hopeful areas of our lives, because little changes really do matter. So it went from being very overwhelming to just, well, what's the next thing to do?
That's super exciting. So building biology, meaning the biological science of building?
It's understanding that our environment, our indoor environment matters, and that the more it reflects nature, the healthier we'll be.
Okay, that's very, very cool. But we got to talk about EMFs. So what you said, electromagnetic field, that's what it stands for. What is an EMF? What is it?
Well, we're talking about, when we understand electromagnetic radiation spectrum, we're talking about ionizing radiation and non-ionizing, with visible light in between. And again, this is science. It's hard to, even wrap our mind around, and I still don't understand it, but actually, frankly, most scientists would have a hard time explaining it, because this is all hidden when it comes to non-ionizing radiation. So when we're talking about EMFs, we're talking about that particular spectrum before visible light. So it's longer waves than the ionizing radiation. This is what most of us are familiar with, X-rays. We understand those can be harmful unless they're very targeted and for medicinal uses, but you don't just get X-rays because they heat the tissue and do damage. So that's ionizing. Non-ionizing is this whole spectrum of our lamps all the way up to our microwave oven. Things that we can't see but are very real, obviously, and our bodies are electrical. We've measured that with EEGs, but we're talking non-ionizing when we talk about electromagnetic fields.
Okay, so it's a wave. If we need a visual, we can picture
a wave, yes,
the wave from science class.
Maybe it's very much like this, or it's like this, and what the science has shown is that all sorts of sizes and all sorts of frequencies can have biological effects. And what we need to understand is that Earth in its natural state is very calm. The Hertz level is about 8, according to Schumann's resonance, and not alternating. So when we're talking about EMFs too, and the way our electrical system is run, we plug something in, it's alternating fields, which means it's pulsing. And this is the part that can be so stressful on the immune system. So it's very different in terms of compared to what we have harnessed from the Earth into these sort of man-made fields versus natural fields.
Okay, so pulsating is part of it, which is really, that's even a new level for me. I didn't understand that. How do experts think that EMFs, or these waves, could potentially harm our bodies?
Well, they're disruptive, and if someone watching this is interested in the science, there's one place I recommend to go, and it's online. It's the Bioinitiative Report 2012, compiling some 1,800 studies that have been done over the years, and it puts them all in one place. It categorizes them, and if you're looking to see, well, this is all speculation, nobody really knows, that's the place to go. And yes, it has been shown there are DNA strand breaks from certain pulsating frequencies, non-ionizing fields. I could go on and on in terms of the science and what it has shown, but I'm
So
not
like
the scientist.
practically in our bodies, what would we see? I mean, we're not drooling from the mouth. What do we see?
Well, and this is like our exposure in our home to toxic mold. We had so many different symptoms. And the bottom line is just stress on the immune system, the stress response, and the different ways our different genetics wire us to respond. You're going to see so many different symptoms, but some people just notice, I get dry eyes by being at the computer for a long time, or maybe I get headaches from fluorescent lighting. Or maybe I get rashes, I get redness if I'm too close to something. There's so many ways, and there's a huge range of symptoms. But anything that doesn't feel healthy, can be a symptom of inflammation or a stress response to our environment, including these hidden fields.
Okay, so it's kind of like asking the question, like, how does pollution harm our body? Too many to list.
Too many things, yes, because it's so different for everybody.
Is it true to say that there are some carcinogenic, there are some evidence of carcinogens as well?
And you'll find that in the Bioinitiative Report 2012 as well. But the one study in the 1980s that really turned the corner of this was Dr. Henry Lai and his colleague found double strand breaks from low EMFs on rats, double strand breaks, single strand breaks, DNA fragments. And so we understand that this is potentially something that's carcinogenic when we have mutations of the DNA. So that whole area of science is very interesting. Enough to say, is this something that I should be thinking about? And this is where it becomes so overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. But, from where I sit, having the health history we've had in our family and how slowly things can come on, and certainly what we know about cancer is, we don't know what's going to happen 20 years from now. So why not be preventative and proactive with what we do know now?
Right. Well, and philosophically, like when I think about food, if it's not proven to be safe, like if a scientist creates a new food, I'm not going to put it in my mouth just because it hasn't caused any problems yet in the 3 months it's been on the market. So if we kind of look at wireless or EMFs through the same lens of we don't have like maybe enough time to really test and prove it safe. So if we can take some super small steps to kind of distance ourselves from it,
yes,
one would think that would be like, guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to the opposite.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So there are a lot of sources of EMFs, pretty much anything that is electric, anything we plug in, anything we use that goes on, but we don't want to overwhelm. So today we're just talking about Wi-Fi and the phones. And I know one thing, so like here's my phone, the Wi-Fi, I turned it off in honor of this interview, of course. And my laptop is wired. That's one thing that I've done in my house to kind of reduce my EMFs. My Wi-Fi is off on my laptop. So we talk about distance being part of the equation here as far as how much it impacts our body. Can you explain how distance affects the impact?
Well, when we're talking about radio frequencies and wireless radiation, we're going up in the spectrum. So everything's a bit higher. The pulsating is more intense. And so an example would be a cell tower. And I think intuitively, you know how they look. And the cell tower is making this wireless happen, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the sources in how we get what we want from our phone is connecting to a cell tower. I don't think any one of us would want to have a cell tower in our backyard, and yet we have them on buildings and schools. But I mean, I drive by a cell tower now and I get a whole different feeling than I used to get. And what I understand and what intuitively we know is the further away from that, probably the better. And yet I don't get the best service. So this becomes a trade-off in terms of cell towers. Do I want to live near one? But I want to assure your readers and your viewers that the little steps really do make a difference. And I could show you this with a meter. And the best way to even test your environment or your phone or having the Wi-Fi on versus the Wi-Fi off is it will show up on a meter and you can see your levels. They do vary as opposed to the intensity and the distance. And definitely with your phone, definitely. And even your instruction manual will tell you this. Don't keep it next to your body. If you look at the fine print of any instruction manual, it says about an inch. Every company, every phone will tell you that. And yet we're not really, who reads the fine print? And this is how we've been trained, you know? So just the simple step of talking into your speaker, look how much further that is. That's going to make a difference.
So that 1.5 feet can make a difference. Because when you're talking about cell towers, I mean, now I start thinking in yards and miles. But when you're talking a phone, like if I have it in my pocket versus on my desk versus across the room, we're talking 3 different levels.
Yes.
Markedly different.
Yes. And ideally, you know, we don't have that. Okay, well, we don't live in an ideal world now, do we? We don't. This is what it is. But thankfully, yes, it's much better. And the science can back that up too in terms of some of the health issues. The closer it is, you know, the more potentially hazardous it is.
Are there any numbers to back that up, like cutting your EMF exposure by a certain % or anything? Or is that?
I think we still don't know, because how can you? This is all so new. The way we have added wireless technology into our culture has been so fast, hasn't it? I mean, as a parent now, my parenting spans from a 31-year-old to a 14-year-old. Totally different. And I feel for these young moms now who are, I don't know, is an iPad okay for my child, for my 2-year-old? I don't know. Everybody's telling me it is, and the more the merrier, you know? And it wasn't like that. I didn't have these decisions.
Right.
But, so I don't think I can't, at least maybe in the Bioinitiative Report 2012, you could see more. What I have seen and studied and read probably 20 books is to understand that this stuff the precautionary principle is better than what you just said. Let's assume assume it's all fine. And if we find out later, oh, well, you know, it's the opposite. No, let's just assume the worst until we know for sure. And how can we know for sure? Until the next generation.
Right. That is very tricky. So, okay, so practical step for a woman especially would be, rather than keeping your cell phone in your pocket, putting it in your purse.
Yes.
And if you're at home, put it somewhere. Don't have it with you. And like the other day, I saw a little newborn sleeping on a dad, and his phone was in his pocket right there. And I went,
right.
I was like, oh my gosh, take the phone out of your pocket, because who knows? Like the newborn head. So, I mean, that's
right.
That's me and my gut reaction.
Already, Katie, you start to see this so differently, don't you? Yeah. And this is, and we're almost scared to start down this road. And yet I want to assure you, as in any other thing, awareness, knowledge is power. And it's always better to ask questions than to just blindly assume, I hope it's all good. I hope it's all good. I know it's painful. I know it's painful to be thinking about that. But I'd rather have the pain now of this and decide what I'm going to do than down the road. I wish I would have thought about this, because I guarantee you in 30 years, we're going to know a lot more than we know now. But the science is compelling. And the amount of scientists who are researching this and coming out to say, let's pull back. In Europe, many countries are pulling back on this. We're not there yet in the United States. There's a huge addiction problem for teens and their phones. We know this. What is that going to look like in 20 years? So many unknowns. So yes, it's painful to think about, but it's so much better to think now.
For sure. Okay, so now I got to play devil's advocate, because it's really easy for people to say, well, who cares if I turn my Wi-Fi off? Here's my phone. Yes, it's off, but my router in my house is still on. And so aren't those waves like going through me? And if I turn that off, I've got cell towers and, 6 houses, my neighbors all the way around. I feel like visually, like for me, I feel like I'm just swimming in this sea of waves. And what does it matter if this is off, because it's not like producing the waves anyway? Or, like, how does that work? How does turning that off save me from exposure?
It's all, every little bit does matter. And I don't think, I can't say definitively, oh, well, that's not, nobody really knows this, but I can tell you from my colleagues in this field, and I've gone to a conference, on wireless radiation in children, and I just could tell that the more we know, and when we choose to make any step, it's a positive thing. Now, scientifically understanding, yes, we're saturated in this, so how can not holding my phone here? I can't really say that except to say I've seen the levels go down. You can, to me, the most empowering thing is to have a meter. This is not, this is what made it become real to me, Katie, is I had to see this, that it actually is real, and a phone emits radiation. And when I saw it on my meter and it go back like that, it's better. Now I test where we're sleeping and the RFs, the radio frequencies. So if my neighbor has it, now I don't have a close neighbor. It's not, we have a very good level in our home once we turned off the Wi-Fi in the home. Well, okay, that was overwhelming, but nobody needs their Wi-Fi on at night. Nobody does. When you're sleeping, nobody needs to be on their device. So to me, rather than try and just take this bit of, there's no point in starting, and then you say, well, at night, my neighbor's router may be on. Well, that's true, but a meter would show you. So I know this. A meter would show you that having the Wi-Fi off in your house is a step, and it goes down. And certainly not having a phone, sleeping by a phone that's on, goes down. So start where you can. And if all you can do is just talk on speaker as opposed to this, that's a huge step. Or maybe occupy your child a different way other than the tablet for, or limit the time.
Sure. Or you could put a tablet on airplane mode, right?
Absolutely. And we have now corded our devices because we had every device known to mankind in our house. We have a large family and I have teens, and we were reliant on it. And I had no idea when we bought the devices. To me, I loved the technology. And you and I do the same thing. We love what we do. So there is absolutely, I can show you on the meter the difference between an iPad on and off. I can show you that now if you want to see it real quick.
Sure, why not? And while you're doing that, so I keep picturing like the phone as a receiver, like it's receiving the Wi-Fi, but you're saying it's also emitting when the Wi-Fi is on. It's emitting signals too in that pulsating kind of format. Okay.
Yeah, and the best way to see that would be, now let's just
so it really does matter. It really does matter. You can turn the Wi-Fi off, you can put it on airplane mode, da-da-da-da.
Let's just hope. You might not be able to see this, but let's just try.
Okay.
Okay.
That says 0.0010.
Okay, so that's not much, is it? Now I'm going to turn the iPad off of airplane mode. Okay.
And so just for everyone to consider this point, 00 some numbers, that's a very, very small amount. And your router is on, your Wi-Fi is on in your house.
No, our router is not on.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay,
So,
because everything is wired.
But can you see the peaks in the graph there?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it went up to 4 and 5, like whole numbers, 4 and 5, not even decimals. But now it's back down to 0.001
well,
something.
It'll go back and forth. And if I say I tried to get on the internet here, yeah, let me just try. And I don't have Wi-Fi, so it's not. But there, see, just by trying, did you see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it went up to 14.
And that's just because I'm trying. I don't have any access right now.
Oh my goodness.
So
so that's awesome.
Okay. And that's not to scare. And see, there would be a lot of scientific, controversy about whether or not that level does any harm. In my mind, the less of that kind of I can have near my head, the better. So
right.
So I do have an iPad, but it's always in airplane mode for me, or I have it corded. Because if I could show you the difference between corded, but you basically saw the difference between corded. That would show the same thing. Nothing, because it's through the Ethernet.
Okay. So that is really interesting. And you're right. Like, how often has science been wrong? Like, medicine was cool with cigarettes for a while. Medicine was cool with trans fats for a while. Like, it's been wrong all the time. And I just, where I come, or what I keep saying about this issue, and I've only taken baby steps, we haven't really done anything major, but I just keep saying, gosh, I do not want to be the mom in 20 and 30 years going, oh my gosh, we let our kids hold those, and we're just like the cigarette people, you know,
Right.
because we look back now and we say, oh my gosh, like they smoked in hospitals and they smoked in cars with kids, and like I get it, they didn't know, but I'm so glad I wasn't them. And I don't want to be that mom, you know,
Oh,
later down the road.
I think we're gonna look back to this and just wince that we didn't know this. And I agree. And the similarities with the tobacco industry, we have a huge wireless industry here. It's very profitable. And if you look at a lot of what they're saying this, they're raising doubt as to this science. While it hasn't been proven to be unsafe, well, they're not saying it's unsafe. They're just casting doubt. And doubt was a huge tool of the tobacco industry. And I know you don't want to be skeptical and, you know, all of this but I would rather think this way. I enjoy the small steps, and I tackled it one thing at a time in that first step. And this was the first step I took for a couple of years, was turning off the router at night. No other changes. You can put your router on a timer. It'll shut off on its own, a Christmas tree light timer, and just nobody needs it.
Okay. I think, and I feel like I bring this up every couple of months with my husband. Like, did we do that? I think we did that. Did we do that? So I have to check again, because I remember we always had this conversation like, well, here are the ramifications. Here's what we'd have to do, and whatever. I think he's got it on a timer, at least midnight to 6 a.m.
Perfect. So, that's great.
It's 1/4 of the day.
That's right. Well, and our sleep is improvement. Yes, our sleep is our restorative time, and that's why I go back to night. If everything else is overwhelming during the day, where you work, at school, focus on night.
Okay. Yeah. So get the phones out of the bedroom.
Yes.
No cordless phones in the bedroom. No, cell phones in the bedroom. So when you talk about turning stuff off, like I've got a lot of options on my phone. I can turn off my Wi-Fi. I can turn off my cellular data, or I can turn off my Bluetooth. Would you say like yes, yes, and yes? Just do it all whenever you're not using it?
Before I did, you asked me this earlier today, and I thought, I know about the Wi-Fi off, Bluetooth off. Absolutely. If I had my Bluetooth on, but I had it in airplane mode, it would still be trying. You want everything off. You want the device to be not looking for anything, including the cellular data. I did check the cellular data, with or without, and I don't know. I don't understand everything about a smartphone. There's different antennas. It's a very complex piece of technology, and we're to be admired for creating something like this. Really, it's amazing. But just off as much as possible. When you need it, turn it all on. Yes, that's a little more inconvenient, isn't it, to do your settings? It's worth it. Mm-hmm. Shut everything off. Keep it in there.
You know what else? So here for parents, I think this is a silver lining. Like when all my stuff is off and I know I have to, swipe, turn the airplane mode off, blah, 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 in order to say check Facebook or whatever, I'm a better mom because I'm not hopping on Facebook and I'm not, annoyed by my Gmail and my Facebook notifications. I can only get text. You can get texts and calls if your cell data and your wireless is off. So for me, it's kind of a win-win to put up that last that little barrier where I'm less likely to just be like, oh, I should be playing with my kids,
Right. Well, kids intuitively know, don't they? Mommy, yeah. No, you're always on your phone, or, I've had friends tell me that. My 3-year-old daughter's after me, and my older kids, if I want my teens to have boundaries with their devices, I have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all, if that gets out of the EMF topic, but it's kind of a silver lining. So we've talked about getting your phone farther away from you, whether it's using speakerphone, whether it's keeping it in your purse, keeping it on the counter instead of your pocket when you're in your home. We've talked about getting things out of the bedroom, turning the wireless off at night, turning your, if you can, wireless data and Bluetooth off when you're not using it on your phone. I feel like these are all really pretty simple steps. They don't take any purchases. You don't have to drill into the wall. If someone were to do the one that would make the most impact, I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but what would it be if it was just one that would make the most impact?
Turn off your router.
At night.
Yeah. Yes, at night. Sorry. Turn off the router at night. Yes. Okay. And you would have to see that on a meter, Katie. But that's what changed my life. was I actually, because I was studying this for building biology, I asked for an electromagnetic an inspection on the home. So a guy came out who had all the tools. He said, turn your Wi-Fi off. I saw the difference on the meter. He said, turn your Wi-Fi on. I saw the difference on the meter, and that was it. I was done. I got it. And I'm so, you know, and everything else I took in steps. But we did that, and I'll never look back and say, oh, that was hard. It wasn't. It's just that I had to believe that it was important.
Right. That's part of it. It's so tricky. Like, who thinks we have to have faith about our health? But you kind of do, just because we can't see it. Like, so the science is there.
Yes.
But because we can't see it and feel it.
We're just so excited, both of us. But think of it this way: you wouldn't keep your microwave on all day. I mean, you wouldn't just turn it on and then just keep it on for 24 hours. We turn things on, we turn things off. It's mind-blowing, really, that we see the Wi-Fi differently than that.
Yeah, wow. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I was just reading a recommendation in like a mainstream magazine about don't put your router in your basement. Make sure it's right central in your house so that all your devices get the best signal possible. And I was like, that's kind of the opposite of what, you know, the EMF people would say. They'd say, get that thing in the basement as far away from your bedrooms as possible. And I'm like,
well, you know, and this is where it gets to be difficult, because some would say, well, when your device is having to work harder, there's more power emitted.
Oh.
So you feel like you're in a no-win zone here. And I say, well, regardless of where it is, well, first of all, I would much rather have it further away than where I'm sleeping. But second of all, just turn it off when you're not using it. Don't worry so much about exactly where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Worry more about turning it on and off and making sure you have that control.
That's great. That's good and fair. Thank you so very, very much, Andrea. I think it's fascinating. It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm trying to just do one little thing at a time and not be a crazy like armadillo helmet, tinfoil helmet kind of person about it.
Well, I admire you for addressing the topic, Katie. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very, very, very much. Have a great day.
You too.